For many people, their home is one of their largest assets. So why is it rarely utilized for retirement? Over the past 5 years, housing prices have shot up by over 60%, which means that if you are an average retirement investor with a standard 60-40 portfolio, your home outperformed your investment portfolio by over 20%. So in this video, we're going to cover some ways that you can actually use your home equity to fund your retirement. Now, for those of you that are new to the channel, I'm Johnathan Rankin, the founder of Theorem Wealth. We're a retirement-focused wealth management firm. I've been helping people plan and execute their retirement goals for going on 20 years now. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our retirement planning videos. If you've been following this for a while, welcome back. According to a recent study, U.S. homeowners now have more than $29 trillion in home equity, 64% more than the same time 5 years ago, which is great if you're a homeowner, but the question becomes, how do you actually take advantage of that growth, especially if you're planning for retirement or you're already retired? For a lot of the clients that we've worked with, the equity in their home has become an asset that they typically just hand down to the next generation. However, with inflation making life more expensive over the past few years and people tending to live longer nowadays, it's time to start exploring other options of utilizing that equity in your home. Now, the first option that you can look at is to sell your home. Research has found that about 25% of retirees could benefit from selling and relocating to a less expensive area. Now, this makes sense, especially with studies showing how taxes, insurance, upkeep, and utilities account for nearly 30% of retired homeowner cost. So being able to reduce those and access the equity in your home might be a good option. Now, the problem I have with this option is the obvious thing. You have to move. Now, I get that downsizing might have been your plan all along, but for many people, downsizing wasn't the plan. This reminds me of my aunt and uncle. They've lived in San Francisco for decades, and as property values increased during the Silicon Valley boom, they found themselves with a dilemma. If they sold and realized the equity in their home, then they had to move outside of the city because financially, renting didn't make sense based on that city's rental market. And as you could expect, their house wasn't the only house in the entire San Francisco Valley that increased in value. Everything was expensive. So they would have to choose between a much smaller house or something that was outside of the city where they had spent decades cultivating a social life. Neither of those options sound appealing. Now, if the equity in your home is enough to make you consider selling your home, it's important to model that in your financial plan. And the first thing that you're going to want to do is figure out what is it going to cost you to sell and move. Now, initially, most people think it's going to cost them just the realtor fees of 6%. But a number of studies have shown that selling a house can cost between 10 and 15% based on the actual home. It's not just the commissions. There are often repairs that need to be done in order to sell the home. You may have taxes that might be due, as well as title insurance and closing costs, and that doesn't factor in the moving part of it. Of course, there's a cost to physically move your things from one house to another, but one of the most common costs that I've seen most people completely ignore is the cost of furnishing their new home. Now, you might be thinking, Johnathan, I don't need to furnish my new home because I already have furniture. And to that, I will say, yes, you do have furniture for your current home. However, are you going to actually like the look of that furniture in your new home? If you're like most people that I've seen downsize or rent for retirement, then I would have to answer no. Have you ever bought a new pair of shoes and worn them out of the store? Well, the first thing that you do is you put your old shoes that were on your feet into that new box. And when I do that, the first thought that comes to my mind was, how in the world was I walking around with those dirty, ugly shoes? The shoes didn't change. It's not like they got worse going from my foot to the box. It's that my perspective has changed. And that same thing happens when you walk into that new empty house and you're going to think to yourself, how in the world did we survive watching TV sitting on that couch? Now, maybe I'm wrong and you buck the trend, but if I'm right, it's important to factor those costs into your financial plan just to see if it's worth moving at all. Now, if you are considering moving to a cheaper area, you should check out Sperling's Best Places, which we'll make sure to link to in the description below, because this site gives you the ability to look at specific examples of moving from one city to another and can help determine if it's a good decision. So what if you don't want to move, but you want to access the equity in your home? Well, that brings me to option 2. You could borrow against your house. Now, you could consider options like a cash out refinance or a home equity line of credit. The problem is that we're not at a place where rates are at historic lows like we were a few years ago. Rates have increased, lending standards have tightened over the past few years. In fact, over the past 10 years, homeowners' equity has increased by 241%, whereas the outstanding loan balances for home equity loans and lines of credit have decreased by 48%. It's a difficult environment out there. As a country, credit card debt is at an all-time high, savings rates are falling, and inflation has made life more expensive. And now homeowners are sitting on a tremendous amount of wealth without the great option to tap into it. Real quick, sorry to interrupt. I have a crazy stat for you. Do you know that 96.5% of you that are watching this channel frequently have yet to hit the subscribe button? So if you like this video and you like what we do here, can you please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button? And in return, I promise you that I will do everything I can to make this channel more informative, more entertaining, and overall just better. So thank you. And now we can go back to what we were talking about. Cash out refinances are significantly more expensive for homeowners now that rates are at their highest level they've been at 21 years. Consider this example from Point Analysis. A homeowner who purchased a median priced home for $310,000 in August of 2020 with 20% down, they would have, at the time, gotten an amazing 2.91% 30-year fixed rate mortgage, and that monthly payment was $1,035. 3 years later, that home has increased by 40% to $435,000, and the homeowner now has $204,000 of equity. If they needed to tap $50,000 of that home equity for, let's say, home renovations, and their only option was a cash-out refinance, given current mortgage rates of 7.19%, their monthly payment would more than double to $2,500. So if a cash-out refinance doesn't make sense, then most people would turn to a HELOC. Now, the problem is that almost half of homeowners fail to qualify. In fact, according to government studies, 46% of applicants for HELOCs are denied, compared to only 12% for conventional mortgages. So if a cash-out refi doesn't make sense because of rates, and you don't qualify for a HELOC, most people feel like they're out of options. Now, one possibility is considering a reverse mortgage. And before I even jump into that, I'm just going to say, this is not me saying that you should go out and do a reverse mortgage. This isn't me condoning reverse mortgages or saying that they're a good or a bad thing. It is very important to understand what all of your options are so that you can make an informed decision. So with that, let's dive into the topic of reverse mortgage loans as an option that some retirees can consider. Now, these loans are primarily offered through the Federal Home Equity Conversion Mortgage Program, commonly known as HECM, which provides insurance for these loans. It's worth noting that reverse mortgages, they're not widely utilized amongst retirees. In fact, last year in 2022, there were less than 65,000 new loans processed under this program. As a financial advisor, I do have some reservations about reverse mortgages. Ideally, we would support the financial needs of retirement through other ways. Reverse mortgages can be complex to comprehend, and they do come with substantial fees and certain risks that are very important that you need to be aware of. One significant risk associated with reverse mortgages is the possibility of foreclosure. These loans don't require borrowers to make monthly repayments, but they can default if they fail to cover property tax and insurance payments or maintain their homes adequately. Fortunately, federal regulations have strengthened in recent years to mitigate these risks. If you have a strong desire to stay in your home and require additional income, it's possible to use a reverse mortgage safely. HECM loans come in both fixed and variable rate options, although fixed rate loans are less common and require you to take the entire credit upfront as a lump sum payment. More frequently, the loan is structured like a line of credit that you can use for various purposes. Things like paying off debts, covering living expenses, or addressing significant expenses like healthcare. You can even opt for a preset annuity style payment that stretches over your lifetime in the home. Now, here's some key points to keep in mind about reverse mortgages. First off, you must be 62 years old or older to qualify for a reverse mortgage. Now, unlike traditional mortgages where you make regular payments to a lender, a reverse mortgage pays out the equity in your home to you as cash with no payment due until you move, sell the home, or pass away. Over time, the amount you owe increases while your home equity decreases. This is because you're adding interest on top of each payment that you are receiving. Now, while you don't need to make debt service payments as long as you live in your house, you are responsible for maintaining the property, paying property taxes, and insurance premiums. You must also continue to use the home as your primary residence. These loans are insured through the Federal Housing Administration, providing both assurances to the lenders and borrowers. This insurance ensures that loans will be repaid, guarantees that borrowers receive the funds as promised, and subject the product to rigorous government regulations. Now, reverse mortgage distributions do not count as part of your adjusted gross income, which means that they won't trigger high-income Medicare premiums or taxation of Social Security benefits. Now, the loan balance can be deferred until the last borrower or non-borrowing spouse moves away, passes away, or sells the home. When repayment is due, the home's title remains with the family members or the heirs, who can choose to keep the home by repaying the loan or refinance it with a conventional mortgage. If they sell the home, they must pay off the balance of the loan first before receiving any of the home's equity. In cases where loan balances exceed the home's value, the heirs simply return the home to the lender. Now, the amount a lender will offer depends on factors like the housing market, the age of the youngest borrower, and current interest rates. Lower interest rates means that you may be able to borrow a higher percentage of your home's value. Now, reverse mortgages are a financial tool with specific characteristics and risks, and while they might be suitable for some individuals, it is very, very important to thoroughly understand these loans and consider all available options before making a decision. I completely understand how frustrating it is right now to feel like you're sitting on this home equity that you don't know how to tap in an efficient way. And if you're considering any of these options that we talked about today, it is best to start with determining how each option will impact your financial plan. We believe all major decisions like this should be analyzed through that financial planning lens and should be really thoroughly analyzed before making any major decisions. Now, if you need help determining whether or not one of these options is best for your retirement, use the link in the description below and schedule some time with a member of our team. We would be happy to help you out. Now, if you are currently saving for retirement in a 401k or a 403b, make sure you check out the video coming up next, where I cover 5 big changes that are coming to 401ks in 2024. I'll see you there.